Welcome, fam, to Wake Up Hex. I'm your guy, KNTX, and I thought it very appropriate to not only play the original intro, but also our new intro on what is going to be one of our next biggest streams with Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney. We have a face this time, guys. We're very proud to have her. I hope you guys can give a big round of virtual applause to the Congresswoman. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And, I had something in my mind, if you don't mind, that maybe like one month I could come on and we could talk about the news from, I don't know what the rest of your program is like, but I'm on some of the Telegram channels. And so I see what's being discussed, and maybe I could give from a different perspective, that are, an interpretation of what's happening in Washington, D.C. sort of thing, or just news that we need to know, not only Washington, D.C., but now we've got the madness that's going on up there with the madness that's going on. Well, it's still D.C., but it's like with COVID, the COVID madness, and people need to know how to protect themselves. I mean, you guys got it going on when you're talking about protecting yourselves financially, but also we need to protect ourselves politically and physically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I would love some follow-up segments going on in the future and attacking it. That's one thing we love about this channel. So we call it the Discourse Syndicate because we like having that discourse. We like seeing the different points of views. And so someone who's not deeply embedded in our community yet, having a different perspective, I think only makes us stronger. The only people that or the people that benefit the most from that are our viewers. So I would love to have some further discussions regarding these things.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. And on your intro, I love the DeLorean.
It's so funny because my business partner, he goes, every time I see that, I just throw up thinking about Dayglow and cocaine in the 80s. And I say, I know, but that's what's hot again. And is that synthwave 80s vibe. And so especially the younger generation, the millennials and even some of the Gen Z just absolutely love that 80s vibe. And those of us that are old enough to remember the DeLorean, man, that is a classic piece of Americana right there.
It is. Yes, it is.
Well,
it gives away my age, but I'm like 2 generations ahead of, so it's okay.
But you're hanging out with us, so apparently you're keeping the mind sharp, and we like
and
that.
I'm learning. That's right.
Yep, absolutely. So we appreciate all you guys joining us today. It looks like we've got 77 people in here with us right now. I think this is just only going to get better because I have invited to join us today Mr. WhalesOnly.
How you guys doing? Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
How you doing, Ms. McKinney?
Good morning, but please call me Cynthia.
Okay.
Yes, Cynthia.
Yes.
We're happy to do so. That's one thing I was going to ask. I want to be respectful, but I always want to give people the opportunity to tell us what they would like to be called. So, because we're happy to oblige.
Being called by my name beats a lot of the other names that I've been called.
Take that. That's right. I love it. So I want to pull these up because I want to get to these here. I just want to knock these out because I know the conversation is organically going to take over, and we're going to go to places we didn't expect to like we did the first time. And then those are the best conversations, I think, as they evolve. But there's some really hot questions that we really need for our community to be solved. And so the first one I really want to ask is who, not only in Congress, but the current political state, is a proponent for crypto? So who is pro-crypto in this, in not just politics, but in our actual government?
Well, I'm going to give you a very surprising answer. And that is, I believe that even the most malevolent forces that use our government for their own benefit are pro-crypto. It's just what form of crypto. And so is it freedom crypto or versus centralized crypto? And so even, Nancy Pelosi in the the budget that didn't pass last year, I believe it was, had digital wallet in there. I understand that the digital wallet might reappear in the infrastructure bill, and it's 1,000 pages, and I can guarantee you none of the members of Congress read it. But the
no surprise there.
Yeah, the lobbyists know what portion they were able to get inside there, and so it's basically legislation that's written by the special interests and the lobbyists. So to the extent that we have deep state actors that are interested in these digital wallets and the centralized version of the cryptocurrency, then what do they call it? Central bank crypto, the CBCD, something like that.
Yeah.
So then we know that is something that is on the horizon. So the question is, can the forces of evil, the forces of freedom, can you guys are in the forefront of this fight, can you prevail? And what is it that people like me can do to help you prevail? The fact of the matter is that the forces of freedom, we've been losing for the last 50 years. And so we've got to figure out a way to do things differently so that we can win. In fact, I'm reading this book, Barbarians Inside the Gate. And if you go to the jacket cover, what he says is, we are at war and we are losing. So that's the way we have to think about this whole scenario, is that we're at war. And I think there's a part of the crypto community that actually believes that way and is behaving that way. What you guys have to do is grow your community to people like me, so that grow the allies, so that we can reach critical mass. I just sent a message I made a presentation to the 911 Truth community. It was the Lawyers Committee for 911 Truth that did a marathon 8-hour series of presentations by people like Whitney Webb. She came after me, and Kevin Ryan, who used to work at United Labs, came before me. And these are people who are very well known in the truth community. And I basically told them that our objective now has got to be state power. So the idea that you, in whatever form this new state will take, because I do not believe that the republic as we know it is going to survive this latest onslaught. And quite frankly, as I said to them, I don't want to go back to normal, because that was an imperfect normal. And I don't want to build back better, which is, what Biden is trying to say to us that needs to happen. But what I do want to do is create my own reality, a new reality that is inclusive of everyone, that respects everyone and accords dignity to everyone. So now I believe that those are the values that the crypto community, as I have known the crypto community, that you have as well. So let's start building something. Let's start creating the kind of governance structure that we want to see, and then take an active part in not only the creation, but the management of it as well. So that's where I'd like to see. So to answer your question about allies inside the Congress, we have to create them. We have to presume that we have no allies, because the fact of the matter is, as one member of Congress whom you all, if I mentioned the name, you all would know the name, told me, if the leadership, Cynthia, you just have to accept that if the leadership tell us to do something, we're going to do it. So now we have no allies. Of the 535 members of Congress that are there, we have no allies. We might get a spark or a ray every once in a while, but the bottom line is just like Fred Hampton said, Fred Hampton, chairman of the Black Panther Party, Chicago, said, we're sick and tired of answers that don't answer, conclusions that don't conclude. And that's what we get when we put our faith in those 535.
It's funny because you echo almost in unison exactly what my business partner, RG3 here, my co-host here on the show, he has his own episodes. He just texted me. He said, I get next with Cynthia McKinney. It's like she's reading my mind. So we're going to have to introduce you to the captain because he feels the same way. What this tells us now, and Captain and I have been talking about this for a time now, is we really need, now that us Hexicans have money, we really need to fund a lobby. We need to get a PAC put together. We need to even create our own lobbying firm. And I think now's the time, and we can speak for the greater crypto community as a whole. And now after hearing your confirmations here, it sounds to us like if we don't do this, now we're failing everybody because now we know what the right step to go forward. We were questioning it. Now we know the right step. Now we need to take action. So thank you so much for putting a call to action out there for us.
Yes, it is a necessary call to action. And let me just say that there's a model that's already out there. The model was the marijuana, the pro-marijuana activists. My dad used to go to the Georgia State Capitol with the normal and smoke a spliff in public to protest the total destruction of young lives for smoking a plant.
Yeah.
And when in 2008, when I ran for president, I found those marijuana activists in Northern California. I found the whole community, and they knew that they were at war because Obama had sent the feds in and was destroying the crops and everything, even though it had been legalized by the state of California. But what they did was they didn't stop. And they used their brains and their money power effectively so that now we are on the verge of, they even had to do it state by state before they brought the feds in, but we're on the verge of a federal decriminalization now. So it's a long slog. It might be a long slog. I don't think we have much time. I think the sense of urgency should be there because I don't know what your community feelings are on the COVID shots, but
don't get me started.
Okay.
We'll get taken down real quick if I start throwing out my opinion of that.
That means we have no bodily integrity anymore. I mean, now they have invaded our bodies, and the research that's being done at DARPA, it actually aids our brains, so they need to control. This all started when
yeah, we're breaking out just a little bit, Congresswoman. Let's see if her signal will come back here in just a moment, guys. So in the meantime, I'll let you guys know I got mass shamed by an airport employee yesterday, and she interrupted my conversation with a buddy of mine as I was collecting my bag and leaving. I was literally leaving the building, and she came up and started trying to mass shame me. And and I turned my back to her, and she goes, "That is so rude." And I looked at her. I said, "You interrupting my conversation is rude." So,
hilarious.
Yeah. I was like, man, if I had a job or I had to go be a fascist dictator to people and tell them what they have to do, even though it's not even law, it's just something they want to push. And then they put it out there. You hear all over the airport, it is federal law. No, actually, guys, it is not federal law. You are not required to wear a mask by federal law. So, and people don't like being told that when they're trying to Nazi mask shame you. So, So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. So we are losing our freedoms, and people are just allowing it to happen.
Yeah, not sure what the hell's going on, but they're going to get their head right eventually.
Yep.
One way or the other, because the pain's coming. It's not stopping.
Yep.
It's just a matter of... Go ahead, Ms.
We can hear you again, Cynthia.
Oh, okay. Well, that's strange because I'm not getting any messages in any kind of way that I have a problem with my internet. That's very strange.
Oh, it's common,
But
man. It's common.
We're yeah, we're losing our right to life.
Yep.
So
the complacency has definitely been a problem since I've been around, as far as I can tell.
In my presentation that I did on the 11th, what I did was I listed out the truth movements that exist from my lifetime. And I should pull that up. But the interesting thing is that there's so many truth movements out there. Now, the position that I took or that I take is that the truth movements prepare the members of the movement for leadership. And, my PhD is in leadership, so I go back to leadership theory. But just looking at the truth movements that in the JFK assassination, the Malcolm X assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, the Fred Hampton assassination, the Vietnam War was a truth movement, the USS Liberty, the Iraq War, geoengineering, global warming, 9/11, and now we have the new movement of SARS, coronavirus 2, and COVID. So look at all of these truth movements, and what these truth movements are doing is they're training their adherents to see the world as it really is and to cut through the propaganda that we are fed 24/7, 365. So once you get that, it's called the disorienting dilemma, when you are confronted with a series of facts that don't comport with the world the way you thought it operated. And then what that forces you to do is to look at everything else. And there are people who are doing that now around SARS. There are people who did it 20 years ago around September 11th. And there are people who did it 55 years ago around the assassination. And I didn't even put RFK, but RFK's assassination is related to MLK and Malcolm and JFK. They're all that series, and also Fred Hampton. Those assassinations that were committed during the 1960s, that they're all connected. So now that
how convenient that they happen to the right players at the right time for certain propagandists to get their way.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what has happened. And so Peter Dale Scott gives us something to look at when he says, okay, the way you can know if it's a deep event that's carried out by the deep state players is, was there a significant policy change? And you look and you see with JFK was bringing the troops home. Well, we had advisors. We didn't even have troops at that time. And then 24 hours later, Johnson is sending in troops. So yes, there are significant policy changes and people whose eyes are open. Now, look at the accumulation of these truth movements. So the accumulation of the singing, the accumulation of these truth movements means that we are reaching critical mass of, and that's only 25% of the population.
Jeez.
So if we can get 25% of the population to understand that we've been lied to and that the construct of democracy, the world, the US polity as it exists now is really a myth, then that means that we have that much more strength in our numbers. And I believe that with all of this 55 years, that we have reached critical mass. We are on the verge of reaching critical mass. Now, in the 1960s, that generation, that was pro-peace, anti-war, pro-social justice, pro-economic justice, and they were out there, the love children, the flower children, the hippies, what that we call them.
Mm-hmm.
They almost won. And the state then had to resort to killing them. Never forget what happened at Kent State. The state resorted to killing them because they were on the verge of winning. So there are many ways in which we now have to understand, as this Colonel Don DeGrone Prey reminds us, that we are at war and we need to comport ourselves in that vein.
Yep. I really like this. So I'm going to circle back around because I think this plays not only into the first question that I asked, but I think it plays off of this as well. But I'm going to have to revise this question because your first answer was different than I really expected. And I should have seen it go in that direction. But when I asked who is not only a proponent for crypto, and you said, surprise, they're a proponent for crypto, but they're a proponent for their crypto of control versus our crypto of freedom. So who is, and maybe this is redundant, but who is against our crypto for pro-freedom? Would you say that is the same answer then, or is there a different spin to that?
It would be interesting to see. Well, there might be some, and I haven't looked at this, but I'm sure your audience has, and they would know who of the 535 in Congress are holders of crypto. So that's one thing. The problem with that comes, however, when the powers that be say, this is what we want. And so now, are they going to go against their own perceived interest, perceived financial interest, because they are holders of crypto, to satisfy the whims of the deep state? My answer is no, they will not. And so the deep state will make a deal that will maybe grandfather in certain cryptocurrencies and or maybe certain types of wallets, and then those will continue to exist with the blessing of the central bank cryptocurrency. That's the way I see it going. I have tried so many times to stand for one issue, one, group of people. And basically what happens is the big guns come in, like the whales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It happens.
And then they're able to cut a different deal. So that's why I say that we have to move with dispatch and make sure that we have people there at the table making the decision when that moment comes. And that's something that needs to be done sooner rather than later, because they can pass the legislation, at any moment.
That's absolutely right. So that actually segues into my next question really well. So who are the lobbyists writing the anti-crypto legislation, specifically the ones writing the crypto portion of the infrastructure bill, and who are the moneyed interests behind the lobbyists?
Let's see, who are the lobbyists?
Because I think that's really where we need to focus, is not the Congress themselves, but the lobbyists writing the rules that are being dropped on the Congress people's desk and telling them where they need to put their vote.
Well, I think we need to focus on the members of Congress themselves.
Okay.
I mean, the lobbyist is going to always be there.
Yeah.
But the member of Congress is the one who actually gets the opportunity to vote. And that's the vote that we want. And I don't think that there's any substitute for actually being there. Like, so maybe we make a plan and we say, okay, the election is in 2022. Who can we get elected in 2022? And then we've got so that means that qualifying is going to take place in a few, for early states, like California is an early state, that's March, Georgia is an early state. So who can we run for Congress from the early, at least from the early states, and then go on through? So we would need to have a calendar of election dates and qualifying dates.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at the assets within the broader crypto community. And I would probably say that your allies are also all of these truth people that I just listed out here.
Yeah.
And so who has the highest name recognition and where? We could sit and we could actually come up with a matrix, and then you plug in names, and then you say, okay, let's recruit these people to run. And we could have something off the ground in a few months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a totally different action plan than I really initially thought we would need to take. But I really like that. So do you find, and this is not one of my questions, but this is where this conversation organically goes, is do we find candidates within a specific third party, or do we try to play within the two parties that have control? Do we form our own party? How do you see that working?
Okay, that was a question that came up with the after my and a few other presentations at the September 11th. The exact same questions, what are we talking about in terms of party? To get something up and running quickly, it would have to be an existing party, and I think we should use whatever facility we have. The important thing is to make sure we have the right people. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm looking at like the civil rights movement here as an example. So you spent 20 years, 30 years begging policymakers to make public policy that benefited your community. And then someone, a bright light goes off and someone says, well, let's not ask the public policy makers to make public policy on our behalf. Let's become public policy makers. There's a big difference, and that was a turning point in the civil rights movement. So that's what I would say. We need that same turning point in the crypto movement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. I'm going to absorb that for a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Are there any current lobbyists or PACs supporting crypto that you are aware of?
I haven't looked at the crypto world in terms of the PACs and lobbyists, so I can't really give any insight into that. I could, maybe take a look at it and then come back to you later.
That would be something we can do a follow-up with later, because it sounds like we're going to have a long-lasting relationship as freedom fighters going forward. So I think since we have so much common ground here, and the little things we don't have to agree on, but pro-rights, pro-freedom, I think that's something we can all stand together on. So yeah, we can save that for a follow-up. That is not an issue. Okay. I want to plug real quick. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a big Twitter presence. He is a lawyer. He works for a lobby firm, I believe. and his name is Jake Chervinsky. He is probably the most pro-crypto attorney on Twitter, Jake Chervinsky. And he will break down every time there's a new bill. He'll break down what that means for the crypto space.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, he is brilliant too. I've been following him since 2017. Okay,
then I will definitely check him out on Twitter.
So do you believe there's industries that don't want us to succeed, or do you think it's just the moneyed people, or I'm sorry, the powerful people at the top that don't want the success of the people to have their own personal currency that they can circumvent the fiat system? So you think there's industries behind that, or do you think it's just the people at the top?
Industries. Let's see, industries.
Yeah, I guess another way to put that would be, are there any industries that feel threatened by the use of crypto that would not want to see us succeed? So they might be the ones funding these bills through their lobbyists.
Well, of course, the entire money industry.
That's true. Western Union doesn't want you to get into crypto because they don't get their 20% tax in and out on both sides.
Yeah. So, you know what, I used to make certain demands on if a corporate CEO asked to have some of my time when I was in Washington, I would have certain demands in terms of what I needed to know about the profile of the company before I would agree to have the meeting. And what I found was that even, it's very unorthodox, but it made them aware that the way their corporation behaved in the community was important to at least one member of Congress, and they would comply. So what I learned from that is when the demand is made, you'd be surprised at who will become compliant. So I think the crypto community has to be in a position of making the demand.
Okay.
And because you have focused on financial security for your members, then access to money is not, or resources is not an issue.
Yep.
So therefore, you need to buy your protection. And the way you do that is through this kind of engagement that we're talking about now.
I love it. I love it. There's a comment here that I really wanted to put up here. I think is very on point with what we're talking about. It says, we forked ETH with Pulsechain, by the way, for those who are not in the know, and we can fork central banking and decentralize it. That's exactly what Richard Hart has built with Hex and some of his new products, is that he's coming out with, like Pulsechain. He's working on decentralizing it, getting rid of the middlemen, which are the banks and all the actors that extract all the value in between you and the end product that you, or goods or services that you are purchasing. And so we are essentially already doing that, thanks to the not your keys, not your crypto. Hex is the only true DeFi where you don't have to give up control of your keys to get yield to make money. So good comment there, Ali Reza. I appreciate you doing that, putting that up there. That is very much in line with Hex itself. I am going to go check on this baby, but I know Whales is just chomping at the bit. He has some questions. There's some things he wants to say, and I think you guys are going to have an amazing discussion regarding this. So I'm going to step away for a moment.
Okay, great.
Miss McKinney, or excuse me, Cynthia.
Yes.
It is my pleasure to be able to have a conversation with you about what's actually going on.
Yes.
I remember as a young man, I really tried to ignore politics to the best of my efforts. And I served in the military and all of that good stuff. So it's not like I wasn't aware. I think the difficulty lies in understanding that you just have to be responsible for what's going on around you, even as a young person, right?
Yes.
And as I've gotten older, I've come to the realization that you just can't sit back and watch anymore. Right. And we're currently in the midst of a strictly informational war, right? Where everything around you is literally there to batter your brain into submission. Right. I mean, TV, entertainment, just everything, even books. Right. I mean, it's hard to find anything that's viable.
Yes.
So, how do you think, because you're a very well-educated woman, everybody doesn't have the fortitude to go through a PhD. So I think a very basic question to ask would be, how do you get young people like myself when I was younger? And now I think I know the answer, but I'm curious as to what you think. How do you get young people to realize that they need to get involved early? Do you think that starts at the home? Does it start in school? Like, where does something like that start? Because that's like a big, just a big speed bump that everybody just goes over and doesn't even pay attention to. Like, they teach you civics, I guess, in some high schools, but that's not cutting it. No, not really. No. Civics and government or whatever they want to call it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And even that is a myth. As I read a book, for my 9/11, my September 11th presentation, I used the work of John Mearsheimer, who I studied international relations up until the PhD, which then I made it sort of international relations with leadership. So the focus was on leadership and change in international relations. And Mearsheimer is a old school, realist school international relations professor, sort of like the dean. And he wrote a book, Why Politicians Lie. And it was the darndest thing, because I thought I was going to get some real good nourishment from this book, because all I've seen, what I've grown up with, is nothing but political lies. But because he's from the realist school, I considered myself to be a realist as well, but we're vastly different. And maybe that's a generational thing. Whereas he's looking at realism as the Bush administration's lies for the Iraq War, and he characterizes those as strategic lies. So there's different types of lies, and there are the strategic lies, and then there's selfish lies. Well, the fact of the matter is, most of the wars within my lifetime have been as a result of the selfish lies, not the 11 o'clock, not the strategic lies. And so the whole book then misses out on everything that we have lived, on our lived experiences.
Right.
So you can go to school and you can get a whole lot of miseducation. And that's what, so how do you discern the miseducation from the education? And that has got to be something that's a skill in and of itself. So, I ended up writing this book when our president used the characterization of some countries as S-hole countries. And then I wanted the world to know, or at least the small audience, for that the United States creates a lot of these S-hole countries through its foreign policy. And then we've got this going on right now. I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So I wrote this book because, I just happened to be in China at the time, but So what we have to figure out is who are the truth tellers and who are the propagandizers.
Right.
And in order to be able to sensitize yourself to what's actually happening in the world, you've got to hang around truth tellers, because otherwise you're living in a blue pill world and it's really a red pill world. You know what I mean? You're living in blue pill matrix. So now where do you get that? I happen to have gotten it from my dad, who was in the civil rights movement. He was a police officer, one of the first Black police officers in the city of Atlanta. And so he would come home and he was fighting mad because he would witness the police brutality. And as a police officer, there was very little he could do. So what he began to do is he protested in front of the police department office, the headquarters, in his uniform. So he would work his shift and then he would protest.
Wow.
And he did it by himself because there was nobody else who was courageous enough to join him.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, the way we become sensitized, I think, is by this process of just looking at our lives. They say the economy is the best economy that we've had in 20 years. And then you look at your life. Are you living better than your parents lived? If the answer is no, then you know that whatever is being said on that boob tube is incorrect.
Correct.
Oh,
we have a special guest.
Now we get some real singing. What's her name?
She's on mute.
Her name is Max.
Max. Okay. Hi, Max.
Can you say hi?
Hi,
Can you
Max.
say hi? See, she's waving at you.
Yeah. I see that
smiling. She's smiling.
I see that smile. That's right. That's right. Okay.
And now we're gonna go back to chewing on things like we do.
You know, there's always room for love in everything that we do.
100%.
And we have to focus on that too.
Yep, I agree.
We have to live it.
The reason I want to take these steps towards a better freedom and a better tomorrow is because of my little ones. If I didn't have a legacy to carry on through my children, I may be a little more nonchalant about it, but I think it's in everybody's best interest that real human rights and real freedom are expressed going forward. And I think it's the only cause worth fighting for. So especially when it affects those in the next generation.
That's right. And our situation is so dire now because, you know, what are they talking about? They want to give her a jab.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I have a grandchild her age. I don't want my grandchild, your child, to have to take some concoction that people we know that we are at war against have created for us. No, absolutely no. It just can't happen. And the situation is such that I think now you guys can become those primary actors that will determine the kind of governance structures that we will have in the future. And you might as well get started now.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And going back to love, I got the opportunity to spend the weekend with a very influential group of Hexicans in DC this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, there was nothing but love in that room. It was amazing. So many like-minded folks. We have an army, guys, here of good doers. We have an army here of good doers, and we've got the right people. It's so strange. It's divine providence for sure, because the right people ended up with this money, thanks to Hex. The right people are going to be the effect for change going forward. and we've got the right people in our community. And there's so many of you that couldn't be there, including Whales himself. Man, wish you would have been there, brother. You and Funding Jim were like the only two of our influential streamers that weren't there, and we missed out on having you guys.
It looked like a really good time.
It really was. And I'll tell you what, from the moment you walk into the room, the love that exuded, I said, this is home. These are the people I want to tie my boat to. You know, this is the anchor I want to put my boat to. And we all go down together, or we affect change in this world going forward.
Well, I think that's wonderful. And so Whales asked the question, how do we allow the young people to have the freedom to experience responsibility? And so I think that, you know, I sent my son on a trip to Mexico. I didn't go, but I sent him there to Oaxaca because I wanted him to see a real revolutionary struggle. I wanted him to see what people are willing to sacrifice because their dignity has been stolen from them. And he went there and he saw a young girl who had been shot by the police, and a young indigenous girl. And the whole community sort of wrapped their love around this girl, and they wrapped their love around the struggle for dignity. Now, of course, you know, the situation has somewhat changed, and I believe that they have achieved in large measure what they were trying to get, that level of dignity. I think it's an autonomous state now, and they have self-determination. So I think exposing our young people to the struggles that still exist, because, you know, we in the United States are privileged in so many ways, and we have to understand that even though there's a lack of privilege right here in the United States, and there are disparities here that need to be dealt with, but we also have to understand that the struggle is much larger than just here as well. And giving our kids that kind of understanding, and it can be now, they can travel the world online, and they can make connections with other kids online. So there are many ways that we can sensitize our young people to the need for them to become engaged in this struggle.
Yeah, you know, it's a great comment. You know, I guess I'm fortunate enough to be from two different worlds, because I was born and raised in New York City, in the Bronx specifically, which, you know, it's relatively speaking for the U.S. is pretty low level. But then again, when I go home, that's even lower, right? Because my family is primarily from the Caribbean. So I see both sides of the coin. So maybe that's why my vision is different than most Americans, because, you know, I'm a little bit more aware. I'm already aware of what happens with money over there. Just that alone is astonishing, right? Because when I was a kid, for example, the exchange rate was not 58 to 1 or 56 to 1. It was like 20, 27 to 1. So our money over there has been devalued by 50%, 100%, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's just gone, right? It doesn't even matter. And the beautiful part is, and check this out, because this is what's happening worldwide. I'm pretty sure of it, depending on the country, right? And now, of course, our countries are going to be the most victimized by this practice. What happens is that everything is priced in dollars, but you get paid in that local currency.
In the local currency. That's right.
What that does is it just sets you up for all kinds of failures, and not just you, right? I mean, the whole economy suffers under these constraints, because what happens is that you get to that point because these local governments are borrowing in US dollars.
Well, here's the problem is that the structure of the international economy was set at a time, it was set by colonialism. And we literally have not exited colonialism. Kwame Nkrumah wrote the book Neo-colonialism to allow us to understand, and created that word to allow us to understand that there are new vestiges of that old system that continue to oppress us. So, in fact, this is part of what I used to teach, introduction to political science, and I start with the colonial mind. So I have to start with Frantz Fanon and how, in many respects, we continue these practices because they've become a part of the culture. So speaking of the acculturation of the colonial mind or the colonized mind, then I go to Paulo Freire, where I talk about the mechanisms of oppression and the tools for liberation, which is part of what I talked about in my September 11th talk, is that these truth movements now have these tools for liberation. They've learned how to work together. They've learned how to organize. They've learned how to cooperate. They've learned the value of unity, even if it's not unity, ideological unity. We don't need ideological unity, but we need unity of purpose and unity of mission. So that, and then the importance of cultural synthesis. These are the four tools for liberation that Paulo Freire gave us in Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And so we apply that to our struggle today. So I give this to the students, and then I would ask them, look around at, I was in Bangladesh, look around at Bangladeshi culture and tell me where the vestiges of colonialism are that are still alive. And so, for example, the best job, the absolute best job in the entire country that you can get is to work for British American Tobacco. And so now I ask the students, I say, so now tell me again, what does tobacco do to the human body? It kills you, right? And so the best job in this neo-colonial setting is from a foreign corporation whose product kills the people. And
100%.
And the students don't think about it in those terms until I bring it out. So we have to decolonize the way we think about this structure. And you're absolutely right that it's a system that is intended to create failure on the local level so that you can have success, which means stripping of the resources at the international level.
100%. 100%. That's exactly how international finance works nowadays. That's exactly how it works, because what happens is that, just like you noted, right, all of these transactions that we see at a global scale are merely just replications of what's existed throughout history as we know it, just in present terminology. So it looks different, right?
And then when you get a country, speaking of the Caribbean, I lived in Jamaica for a while, and I was a partisan of Michael Manley, who, in my opinion, put Jamaica politically on the map, whereas Bob Marley, of course, put Jamaica culturally on the map. But so here we have a country that's trying to cut that yoke of its existence in the colonized world and set new terms. And then the CIA comes in. I was literally asked to be an informant for the CIA while I was there. I said, I'm not going to spy on these people. These are my people. What are you talking about? And but that is, that is the reality. And that heavy hand, that same heavy hand of the deep state that came down on, say, for example, Fred Hampton, who should have been able to become mayor of Chicago or U.S. representative for Chicago, ended up dead in his bed, killed by the Chicago police and the FBI. The same thing happens to these international leaders who are also trying to stand for freedom for their countries.
100%. I mean, where I live in my country, it's literally a combination of K Street and Miami Beach, because I'm a mile and a half away from the coast. Okay, so you literally run there and back, like a 15, 20-minute walk. Okay.
Yes.
The presidential palace is literally to my west, like 100, 200 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When people are pissed, they go marching, right? They go marching around the palace. They let them know.
Mm-hmm.
They let them know. But what happens? What happens is around where we live, the power goes out. Right.
Yes.
The electricity is barely on. Sometimes you won't get water.
Yes.
You won't get water. And you just heard the areas that I mentioned, Miami Beach and K Street. 2 areas that we know full and well would never, ever have those issues. But check it out, because it gets better. What I didn't tell you is that to my east, I have the Central Bank of the Dominican Republic headquarters right to my east, literally a block over. Wow. And then across the street from them, there is a U.S. consulate compound, cat corner. They have this huge block. So this is what's going on in the Caribbean island of the Dominican Republic. Yeah. Now the question is, what are these folks doing there? What's their agenda, right? Because they're clearly not helping anybody in that country. Because when you look at the economy, people can barely survive, barely.
That's right.
I literally mean barely, and that's being generous, mind you.
And here and so basically, if you look at the internal structures inside these countries, what you find is that they have an upper level that identifies, and this is part of that neo-colonial mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am, 100%.
Identify with the staff at the U.S. Embassy more than they identify with their next door neighbor.
100%. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. But that's literally that colonialist brainwash still in full effect. I mean, in my country, people hate themselves for being themselves.
Yes, that's right.
It's that weird racism thing. It's that self-racism, right? And you see it all over. We're all guilty of it to a certain point because we have to be, right? I mean, as a child, all you see is A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, and it's not you. So after a certain point in time, you think there's something wrong with you, even though there's not.
Even though there's not. So one of the things that this is on steroids in a country like Bangladesh that has a history before the conversion to Islam, had the history of Hinduism and the caste system. So I just have a quote here that I want to read. This is from Steve Biko. The biggest weapon in the hands of the oppressors is the mind of the oppressed. That is part, and that's why I start my semester with Frantz Fanon, because he looked at the psychology of colonialism, and he got into trouble when he also discussed the psychology of the fight back, and how people became reinvigorated because they were fighting back They were fighting for themselves. And this whole idea, what Fanon talks about is that first colonial contact. When you very first, it's like a disorienting dilemma for people of color, because you grow up with dolls. I've been all over the world, and I look at the dolls, and the dolls don't have any resemblance to the way the children look. And so the children grow up idolizing this, not themselves. That's right. That's right. And it's the psychology that allows that identification with the U.S. Embassy above the identification with your fellow neighbor.
Yes. So I'd like to elaborate on that. Colonialism isn't over. A lot of people think it was done. It is not over. We just use it in a different way now. And when I say we, I mean our representatives use it in a different way.
I mean, it's expanding, actually, right?
I don't know if you've ever read the book. Oh gosh, what is his name? John Perkins. The author is John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yes.
I was turned on to this guy through the Valuetainment. Patrick Bet-David interviewed John Perkins and explained how we use our financial system in giving these big low interest loans to other countries in a form of controlling them. And so it surprises us when people are when we see these nations starting to take money from China without all the stipulations that we gave. Well, they're just playing the next level that because all these other countries are turned off by us now. You don't play our game, we'll go in and assassinate your leaders. That's right. You better take this money. You better take this money, and then now you're at the beholden behest of any beck and call that we have for you. And so people are running to China thinking that's going to be a better solution so they can get this free. They don't understand
China,
money.
That's all. China plays a very slow game.
Yes. They got a 500-year plan. We've got a 20-year plan. So there is a difference between tacticians there. But colonialism is very much alive. So Confessions of an Economic Hitman, if you guys ever get a chance, at least watch that interview with Patrick Bet-David on Valuetainment, because it'll blow your mind and give you a whole new a whole new view on the paradigm, a whole new paradigm shift on how we literally control the rest of the world through our financial system. And that's 100%. One thing that us as Hexicans and us as crypto influencers and us as a community as a whole are trying to change things.
Yep, we are. Actually, Cynthia, I'm one of those people that's actually, I've been devoting my time, because I work on Wall Street. I was in the military. I've experienced a lot of things, right? I literally work for them. I've worked for them my whole life, basically.
Yes.
And I just, you learn these things, you connect these dots, you see what's going on. So I've taken it upon myself to kind of create a series of educational live streams that I cater for the community pretty much on a weekly basis. And what I do there is expose exactly what's going on, just using math and legal documentation and just their own documentation and data, right? So people can see that the information is actually out there. It's not hidden. You just got to look for it. And go ahead.
What is your, you're on YouTube or what?
Yes. I'm on YouTube. You can find me on youtube.com/WhalesOnly, just like you see on the screen.
Oh, okay.
You can't see it now. I'll just type it in the chat for you.
Yeah, I'm going there right now. I'm gonna become a subscriber.
Well, it wasn't for all that. It was just to pretty much get
I'm doing it. Because I need to learn and I want to learn.
Right. Well, here's the thing, right? It's kind of interesting because until I heard about John Perkins, I had heard about him before. He's not new to me at this point. I've, been on Wall Street for a while. So I'm very familiar with capital markets and how things actually move. I've seen what the federal government does in regards to fraud, waste, and abuse. I know what the definition of fraud, waste, and abuse is. And I know you've heard that term a billion times.
Yes, that's right.
While you worked in Congress, because that's what they love to talk about. Fraud, waste, and abuse. But what are they doing in reality? What they're actually doing is that they're projecting their activities on others. That's what they're actually doing. because the purveyors of fraud, waste, and abuse is the federal government, period.
That's right.
And this is what I basically always go to. Like anytime I do I got a chart set video, whatever. That video, I literally start every series of charts with a pie describing how an economy works and how you're getting fleeced. Because people don't understand, you're the value creator. You're the reason anything even works, period. Right. You're the reason governments can function, because you don't realize all you have to do is stay home.
That's
then
right.
What? What are they going to do then? They already shut the economy down once. Why don't we do it this time, right? That's one tactic, because they need the money. Unless they're just going to print it, then what? Then what are they going to do, right? It's about putting these people into a corner, and there's so many ways to do it. It's just a matter of getting organized, getting people educated, and that's kind of what I realized. I never thought I'd be having a conversation with anybody that's been in politics, but then again, everybody that's been in politics isn't like yourself.
So I just have to throw this out there. We are having an amazing discussion here, and I knew you guys would jive. I knew you guys would have so much in common, because it really does come down to the education. But I hate to interrupt us, but we just had a very benevolent Hexican send 100,000 hex to Cynthia McKinney. That is today. That is about $40,000 worth of hex that has been sent to you today. So I just wanted to say that there are a lot of people in our community that are very excited for us to be talking to you. And now we're going to show you, Whales and I will do this off stream. I think this is a better setting to do this. We will show you how to multiply that. Yep. So we will show you how this economic system works outside of the traditional economic system, and grow your wealth independent of anything that the fiat system can create. So those of you guys, this is her address. If you guys want to be benevolent Hexicans and show her the generosity of our community, and show her that the love that comes from our community is worth being part of this community, again, right here is her address, guys. So
yeah, if you got some liquid hex, definitely show us some love. Show us some love, because she's clearly an ally. The type of ally that we need in the real world to help us achieve our goals that we've all discussed in person. We know what we want, guys. So it's just a matter of taking action and not being shy about it, because here we are. What else do we have to do? Because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop.
And that's what I think this whole SARS coronavirus 2, COVID, the jab, I think what that has shown us now, if there were people who maybe were, on the sidelines and they really didn't know, now we know that these people will stop at nothing. They will put their ingredients inside of us.
100%.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy when we think about where we're at in 2021. We're literally living under medical tyranny, and people are acting like that's okay.
That's right.
So clearly there's some major cognitive dissonance in people's minds, or just some kind of disconnect that we just can't fathom. It's kind of crazy.
So while we're here and before we depart, I think might have done this last time, but there are some, our families are even split. Because
100%.
As much as I preach this, and my mother knows that, she's a nurse. She believes in the medical system the way it used to be, but it's not like that anymore.
Yep.
She took the jab. And I know that there are many families that have been split because family members are believing this hype and they're taking the jab.
Yep. My family is one. I've got a very personal story regarding that. So I was going to, from DC, head down to see my sister in Atlanta and hang out with her. But when she asked if I had gotten the vaccine and I said, "Oh, you mean the jab?" that automatically set it off. And she said, "Well, maybe we can meet you for dinner some night, but I don't think it'd be best that you stay with us." I said, "Wow, I'm sorry that it's come to that." Yep, I am sorry. And then I sent her I sent her journals from the Lancet. I sent her journals from Princeton showing why this is worse than the actual virus itself, especially if you have no underlying symptoms. Right. And I don't think she liked that. The conversation has been shaky at best since then. So I love her to death. She is military, current military, and they forced her to take it, or she would have to resign. And so her whole livelihood was based upon taking the jab.
Well, as I might have said last time we were together, I spend a good deal of my time since I wrote that book, put together the authors. So I spend a lot of time with the frontline doctors, one in particular, and we speak just about every day. Hope is not over just because a family member took the jab.
Yeah.
And so what we have to do is help them, and we also need to help ourselves. There is a website. Let me put it here.
Yeah. Well, while you're pulling that up, the best meme that or not even meme, but the best thing I saw on Twitter was, if I'm wrong about the vaccine, then I get sick, I recover, and I have antibodies. If you're wrong, what are your long-term effects?
That's right.
That's right. That's right. Okay. That's the site, drxmd.com. And you'll see there the vitamin D is critical. We know that now. Mm-hmm. The NAC is critical. We know that now. Elderberry syrup or elderberries. I actually get the tea from the dried elderberries, and I sip on that as well as the chaga tea. Yes, that's right. And so, yeah, there it is. And so the quercetin, if you cannot get the hydroxychloroquine, then quercetin and vitamin C are
it's a natural remedy. I can get that at a health food store. I was taking quercetin when we thought our family had it. I didn't show any symptoms. I've not taken any tests to confirm whether I did or did not have it, but I feel I had all the symptoms. Yes. We had our family on the quercetin. Within 2 days, there was all the symptoms had gone away.
Yes, and now the new thing is we take all of this, the vitamin D3, the vitamin C, the NAC. Now the new thing is the black cumin. That's black seed oil. Okay. And black seed oil is as old as the Egyptians, and they used it as a healing. So the black seed oil seems to have efficacy against this, because the real problem is not the so-called virus itself. The real problem is the spike protein. And that spike protein is the bioweapon. It was made in the lab. So, but the spike protein can be killed with these natural remedies. It's amazing how efficacious the natural remedies are. So I immediately put my mom on the black seed oil. I put her on turmeric because, of course, turmeric is it
helps with the inflammation.
That's right. Thin the blood from the clots, and then the vitamin D3 I give her as well. And every time I talk to her, like tomorrow I go to see her, and I'm going to say, "Have you been taking your pills?" I check them, So if you can get your sister to just bump up her vitamin D, her vitamin intake, that would be very helpful.
That is good to know. I don't know if anyone else has been following, but the world is torn 50-50 on Joe Rogan's 3-day turnaround from COVID. He got a hold of ivermectin. Within 3 days, he was cured. And so you've got those who are like, good for you, Joe Rogan, you found another way to get this done, and you've healed yourself. And then you've got the other side saying, that is so dangerous. You're promoting something that is so dangerous, which has been a safe drug for over 50 years that we know is safe and been tested through numerous studies. And there's not been newer studies on its effectiveness against SARS because it is a cheap brand. It is a knockoff of an existing product that the pharmaceutical companies no longer have the patent on. So there is no moneyed interest to go do a further study on it. So unfortunately, we will probably not see further studies on its effectiveness on the SARS because, number one, there's people that don't want you to know that there's remedies out there. And number two, there's no money in it for the big pharma.
Well, I take ivermectin. I take it prophylactically. So, and I would recommend anyone, I take a very low dose. The study actually came from Bangladesh, and I have a graphic which I'm trying to find that shows the incidence of cases in countries for which ivermectin is like normally used. And that graphic shows that the incidence of cases is very low. And that's because people are taking they're taking the ivermectin, they're taking the hydroxychloroquine. Now maybe it was hydroxychloroquine, because of course, in countries that have the malaria, they, the hydroxychloroquine, they have to live with that. Let me see if that's.
Before we get this interview taken down, because we're
oh yes, that's right.
Before we get this interview taken down, I want to pivot to ask you a quick question here.
Sure.
About, are you familiar with the Assembly of States and how many states have signed on to reorganizing the federal government? It's a pretty big movement right now. The person I hear the most from, yes, Article 5 of the Constitution, Assembly of States to rewrite the rights and the privileges of and it's really privileges of the federal government. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with it at all. The biggest proponent that I've heard of it is Mark Levin, him and his radio show.
I don't know if it's the same thing. I have been contacted by people who are interested in having a constitutional convention to rewrite the Constitution. And quite frankly, I'm a bit afraid of that because I know when you open up something, anything can happen. And so depending on who the forces are that are moving this movement, and I'm not very trusting of it at this point. If I knew more, maybe I'd be more trusting, but right now I don't trust it.
Yeah, I'll circle back with more information. I think it's definitely good for both of us too on our ends, but it seems to be truthers and very pro-freedom people that are leading this charge right now. And that's why a lot of the very liberal states are not willing to sign on to the assembly. So, and I'm not sure. Producer Paradigm keeps throwing that he's trying to get my attention. Anna von Reitz is a giant proponent for this. So
yeah, I've actually heard of her. I might have even communicated with her. I don't really know very much about that.
They are telling me that is the state assembly versus the Constitution of the Constitutional Convention. So he's even saying it's not a constitutional convention. Please do not say that. So we'll do more research. We'll come back. I think it's just I think that's definitely something to maybe look into on both of our ends. If it's another tool that we can use in the fight for freedom, it's definitely worth looking at.
Kinetics, what it is just a reorganization of the power structure that the federal government has at hand, essentially removing whatever they got. That's the objective of Article 5, because what's there now is clearly giving them too much, so has to be parsed back. And that's
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's basically the objective of Article 5, because it's just reconstructing what's already in existence.
Yeah, and so this argument of the Constitution being a living, breathing document, it was never intended to be that. It was supposed to be, here are the things that your federal government cannot oppress you with. It was never supposed to be a living, breathing document. So when I hear that from certain people, sorry, it's straight bullshit, because that is not the case. It is a straight, you as by natural law, whether you believe in a God or a higher power or not, have rights that cannot be taken away by the state. And that's what it initially was set up for. Ultimate freedom.
Yeah,
well, I believe in freedom.
Well, the funny thing is that most people do, they just don't realize it. And for a lot of people, for a lot of people, it's economic stresses that put them in these ideological camps that make no sense.
Yes.
That's really what my end analysis has been, because I've thought about this for too long. What causes people to not understand that 1 + 1 is 2? And it just doesn't make any sense.
But you know what? People are leaving their jobs now because they've been forced to say, you take the jab or you lose your job. And people are making the choice to walk away from their job. That, I believe, is a kind of individual assertion of freedom that we haven't seen in a very long time on the part of average, ordinary folks, where it has come that far down that that people are having to make that choice. I think this gives me hope that people are saying, I'm willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at that point myself. I still am employed, but if they do require it, I'm just gonna have to do what I have to do, because I'm not anybody's, guinea pig. So
yeah.
And then they'll see me in court because it's just illegal on so many fronts. It's not even funny. I'm honestly not concerned about it. But if they want to play that game, we can play. Plenty of lawyers out there willing to get paid.
If I were not even worried about it. Exactly. If I were ever to lose a job or a position due to not being willing to take something that I don't seem necessary for my well-being, that you bet your ass I would take it to the next level, and I would get litigation involved, and I would set a precedent going forward for those who have the same issue. That there would be a legal precedence in our legal system that we are not going to stand by and take this, and you will be held financially accountable for destroying people's lives because they don't fall into the propaganda that you're spewing.
All this does, and a lot of people are making the decision to. Here's someone right here.
Yep.
And people are making the decision that they're going to walk away from it. But what it does is, even when you file the lawsuit, depending on how that goes, it only exposes the extent to which the entire infrastructure of the political system that we thought we had has been eroded. That's what it exposes. And so that's what people are seeing now. We thought we had an independent legislature, and now we know that we don't. We thought we had an independent judiciary, and now we don't. We thought we had an executive branch, and now we know we don't. We thought we had checks and balances. Oh, but now we don't.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think this is a great place for a conclusion, because I think there's so many things we can come back with on here later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and send Whales here. I'm going to send him your handle on Telegram so that you guys can speak as well. We're going to show you how to multiply, how to turn on the money printer that is Hex, that is separate from the fiat system and void of any middlemen. So the greatest financial instrument that we have ever seen in our lifetime, and possibly in the history of humans. So we will get in touch with you on that, because we need to show you now how to start multiplying that hex. So
okay, sure. Very good. And that's called staking, right?
Correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Let me try it myself.
Okay. Yes.
That's right.
I like that.
That's right. I'm in class. I want to learn. I'm going to try it myself, and then I'm going to tell you I staked.
I'm going to put the link in the private chat for you.
Okay, great.
And so the link is in there. So that is this. You'll want to have the same browser that your MetaMask is connected to when you go to that particular state.
It already sounds complicated.
Nope, you've already got the browser that your MetaMask. You've got your MetaMask pulled up. Just hit another plus sign and type in this address, and it'll take you right to the right place. And then it'll ask you if you want to connect your wallet to the site, and that just gives it the opportunity to read your balance. That's all that the site does, is read your balance on your MetaMask. So I am going to go ahead and take us out here at this point in time. Cynthia, stay on after the intro, because we'll meet in the green room afterwards, and we'll catch you up on just a few things. And in the meantime, Hexicans, thank you guys for being the best community ever. I felt the love this weekend. I know it exists. We got the right people the right people got this money. Now with this money comes the power and the ability to affect change. Now we've got the right allies, and we're going to proceed forward. In the meantime, thank you guys.